myself, the middle school me, the filmmaker wannabe. So let's get started. Yeah, so I got some notes and I wanted to go over that and kind of talk about what advice I would give myself, what pointers I would give myself if I was to kind of think back in time and imagine a conversation with myself now to myself back then. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is show you a picture of myself. Here's one. There's 8th grade Noah way back when. Yeah, with all the hair on all the awesomeness there. All the acne of a middle schooler. I'm with my older brother Joseph and one of my mentors, youth pastor friends, Tyrell, at the time. Yeah, so even back then I did some filmmaking, not a ton. I did like stupid little videos around the neighborhood with friends, and we have a collection of videos that we shot, which was a lot of fun. And so back then, middle school shooting was not something I saw as something I could do as a profession. Really, it was just for fun. But the thing was, I was drawn to filmmaking, and it was something that I was good at a young age. And I was able to spend more time on that and be focused doing that than most other things in life, which is kind of cool. So that's why I wanted to talk about it. And so for me to look back at myself and address myself is kind of fun. So my first point is it's your journey. It's my journey, and it's not perfect. And so there's kind of a perfectionism that happens, at least in my life, and I want to have every project be perfect. I want to have every project. I'm on the wrong screen there. There we go. I want everything to be perfect. I want everything to be right the first time, and that's not really how it happens. When you're filmmaking, stuff goes wrong, especially when you have little experience or no experience. And so you got to just accept that you're going to make a bunch of mistakes and nothing's going to go perfect. And it is the way it is. So, you try your best, you do what you can, and some things are going to work out and some things aren't. But it's your journey. It's what makes you, and that part of the filmmaking process has to happen. You have to cut your teeth and make the mistakes and do that, which is kind of the second point, which is make 1,000 mistakes. And so, there's a famous Malcolm Gladwell book about the 10,000 hour rule. You got to practice your craft for X amount of hours before you become an expert at it. And so there are different theories going for that and against that. But I tend to kind of favor that 10,000 hour Malcolm Gladwell theory in the sense that you put in the time and effort and things will pay off. And so you got to not be afraid to make 1,000 mistakes. You got to not be afraid to try different things and use different cameras and try different effects. And you just got to experiment and have fun with it. And so, which kind of goes to my third point, which is to kind of try stuff and have fun. And so, when I think of filmmaking back then, I think one of the greatest tools and things or tasks that I try to do was all about copying, so to speak. And I know that comes off as kind of a negative term. A lot of the times people don't want to copy. They want to be this original creative art type person. But the reality is there's already really, really great stuff out there. And so for you to kind of intimidate, copy, to recreate those kind of things, I think is helpful. And the reason why it's helpful is you get to practice kind of seeing and trying to break down and study how somebody who has more experience than you has done those projects in the past, and has been successful at it. And that's why you're watching, the big blockbuster movies and the big famous movies, because you admire that work. And so why not make your best attempt to recreate what those projects are? So yeah, that's super helpful. So what else would I say to myself back middle school me? Don't let other people slow you down. I mean, I think there were a lot of adults and a lot of peers and a lot of people around me who didn't really see filmmaking as a career. And so I started to believe those things. And it really took a long time for me to realize that I can make it in Hollywood and I can move out here and be successfully part of the business. And it's funny how those conversations of people that like didn't intend to slow you down. They were trying to encourage you to go a different direction because they didn't think it was possible. But it's interesting how generally those people who were limited on their beliefs probably had a background of them having big goals and them not being able to work out those goals. They had big ambitions and somehow they failed along the way. But for me, it worked out. And obviously it doesn't work for everybody. But, doing the tips that I just said and a few more that I'm about to say will probably give you the best chances of success. And so that's all you can really hope for is the best chances of success. And so another thing is like how you define what success is. And so for me, all I really wanted to do was be a part of the industry. And, there are people who want to direct and want to DP and do all these specific positions. And I'm grateful and thankful to say that I've been able to do those positions a few times. But the reality for me was it wasn't about fulfilling a certain role or executing a certain vision per se. There is one project I want to do that for. But generally speaking, I just wanted to be a part of the film world and a part of the film business. And that's what I've been able to do. And so I've gotten to work on hundreds of different shows and projects along the way. I think I have close to like 500 days or something collectively between DPing, ADing, PA, work, and other various positions, art department. Sometimes I was in a post house doing editing for 7 months at one point. So those days add up pretty quick. And so now it's been 7 years in, and I'm at a point where I'm kind of reevaluating where I'm at and what I'm doing. And so if you're following along in this series, I've been talking before about how I'm focusing more on corporate gigs and corporate streaming. And that was out of kind of not wanting to work, 14 to 18 hours on set anymore. And also my priorities are changing with being married and having a wife and trying to put God first in my life. And so that's kind of what's different for me compared to a lot of my peers. But yeah, as far as middle school me goes, just know that it's one of those things that you need persistence. And so you need to put in the hours and put in the extra work. And what's going to make you successful is when you're willing and able to push beyond where your peers and everybody else, your friends, where they give up or stop, shooting and editing and working on projects. When you decide to continue going, no matter how tired you are, that's what's going to make you successful at that, because essentially you're willing to put in and get more experience and go above and beyond what your friends were willing to do. So they're limited by their experience, and that can work in your advantage if you're willing to push through that and actually make that a successful thing that you do. So imagine like if they stop halfway through the race and you complete the full race, you're going to have 50% more experience than them. And that's what filmmaking is ultimately, is accomplishing goals, finishing the race, right? So shooting and, well, that's the middle of it, right? Let's start with pre-production, like planning and organizing. That's a race in itself that has its own headaches, that has its own hurdles that you need to face. Then there's the shooting side of it, which is like getting your stuff ready to shoot and get the camera and lighting and all the kind of technical things that you need to know to accomplish that. And then once all that's done, then you push it over to post-production, so there's all these different steps that need to get done along the way. And so if you push through and make it to the end more consistently than the people around you, you're going to be that much better over the long term. And so that's kind of the exponential growth thing that tends to happen. There's a book I'm reading, or have read, I should say. Let me look up the name of it. But essentially it talks about that little difference that you make every single day, that little change or that little ability to go beyond what you were at before, is going to make a huge difference. And so especially with your peers and the people around you, the reason why a lot of the other people didn't make those goals is probably because they weren't able to push themselves past their, oh, I'm tired, I'm done, I don't want to do this anymore point. And so the book I was referring to is called The Compound Effect. It is a great book about how those little differences make a huge impact over the long term. And so when I was in middle school, that was close to 15 years ago now. It's a long time, 2004, it's 2019 now. So I think I was in middle school, if I remember correctly, 2002 to 2004, 2005, I think. yeah, and I was having fun, doing sports and doing other things, but I also loved shooting. And I took an old VHS camera, believe it or not, and slung it over my shoulder and filmed stupid videos of us kids. And the good thing is I still have those videos today. I have them archived, and I'm going to use them for the project I was talking about earlier. I love being a part of the film industry and part of the film business, but ultimately the one story that I still would really love to tell is about my mom. She was an alcoholic who got progressively worse, and she ended up passing away, never really recovering from that addiction. And so reality is her alcoholism was a side effect for what was really going on in her life. She was attracted to women as well as men and didn't really know how to cope with those feelings. And so alcohol was her escape, so to speak. And obviously that had some harmful side effects. And her addiction kept her from sustaining work. And so eventually she ended up kind of bottoming out and living with friends and couldn't pay rent. And that those choices and habits that she developed kind of crushed her. And she eventually she passed away from what's called hypercardiovascular disease, which basically means your heart gave up on you. So that's how I lost my mom back in 2009. So it's been 10 years. It just hit the 10-year anniversary on July 1st. So about a month and a half ago. And so my hope was to shoot interviews and do a doc about her life and kind of have the friends and family help me tell that story, which is still something I'm passionate about and I want to do. But it's been about 4 or 5 years. I put that project on the back burner because life's happening and things, life gets busy, things happen. So I still want to complete that project and it will happen eventually, but I'm focused on other things right now. So so that's kind of my backstory and why I got into the film business and where I am today from growing up as a filmmaker. So the next video I'm going to talk about is the differences between middle school and high school. So what I would say to myself as a high school filmmaker, the things I would encourage a high schooler to practice and to do. And a lot has changed since I was in middle school and high school as far as the film industry goes and, resources that you can use. But at the same time, there are a lot of things that are very similar and that are the same. So yeah. What would you say? Well, how would you encourage a middle school filmmaker if you were to look back, maybe talking to yourself, or maybe somebody that's in middle school that wants to be a filmmaker? What would you say to that person? How would you encourage them? Leave a comment below. Let's have a discussion and see what other great minds think about filmmaking and advice that you'd give to somebody else. So thanks for tuning in. I'll catch y'all on the next